Good evening, everyone. It is Thursday, February the 17th, right? It's Thursday, right?
Yes.
Oh, God. Last time I forgot what day it was. Hi, Matt. Hi, Virginie. Yay. Have a very special guest joining us tonight. I say that every show, but every person who comes on here is a special guest, so... but I thought I'd launch this just a couple seconds early, give the connection some time to resolve. Hey, Cassie. Sarahbot? I don't know who that is. No, I know, but you don't need attention. You're fine. Hi, Mike. Very cool, very cool. Couple fun things I'd like to let people know about while we're waiting for the man of the evening. The schedule for March for Strange Conversations is out. It's on our story right now, and it'll show up on our feed as we go. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, everybody. Hey, Campfire. I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and say Jordan. Hi, Jordan. And then, yeah, so that's up. And then we're actually working on the schedule for April. Got a couple people confirmed, and we're just trying to cinch up some dates. So that's cool. Tonight's ensemble is brought to you by Jeff Foran of Strangeology. Oh, and also Strange Days. Strange Days zine. There's not a lot of good paranormal print material out there, but Strange Days is doing it, and they're doing it right. Speaking of print material, you can now order issues of Paranormality Magazine. Paranormality Magazine in print. That's pretty cool. None of these are paid advertisements. These are just things I'm excited about. So, but yes. We'll hang out for a few minutes here. We'll wait until our guest of honor shows up. Any questions you guys have or any comments, please throw them into the chat. UFO Bigfoot, I'm doing a paranormal zine. Please tell us more about it. Please. I would really like to know more about that. Hello, the unknown paranormal. Welcome. Welcome. But yeah, any questions or comments you guys have, throw them in the chat. I'm finding, this is a good problem to have. I'm finding as more people jump on here, it's harder and harder for me to keep up with all the comments and questions. So I will do my best to respond to all of them, but if I don't, it's nothing personal at all. And there he is. There's the guy. All right. UFO Bigfoot says it's a work in progress about the Fae and spook lights. Ooh, I'll send you one when it's done. Please do. Hey, Caleb. Please do. I would love to talk about it and tell people they should check it out. Hi, Courtney. Hey, Dad. My dad's here. I love all y'all, but I get really excited when my dad shows up. Hey, Jonathan. There he is.
Hey, what's going on, man? Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
I was trying to get it to work on my computer, but there's some kind of weird thing where my email is registered to some other random Instagram account, which seemed like a spam account. So I have no idea what's going on. So hopefully the phone doesn't fall over, but because I can't find my phone stand, of course, now, but hopefully it'll work.
I appreciate you making time, man. I know you're super busy. You do this on-camera thing a lot, so I appreciate you penciling me into your schedule.
It's fine. You think I'd have it a little bit more figured out with the Instagram thing, but
you're a busy guy. There's only so much time in the day. Oh, I forgot to turn the moon on here. So for anybody watching who doesn't know oh man, look at all these nice people. My sister's here. Greg's here. Bunch of cool people. Welcome, everybody. Thank you. So for anybody watching who's not familiar with who you are and what you do, could you give us, a bio on you? Anything you care to share?
Yeah, just a guy who likes to get out in the woods and have fun. I mean, that's all you need to know. I'm just kidding. That is partially true, but no, I'm just a guy who's into cryptozoology. I consider myself, I guess, a cryptozoology researcher and a Bigfoot researcher, Bigfooter, whatever the term might be, filmmaker, probably first and foremost, and an outdoorsman. I just love being out in the woods, or in any wilderness kind of areas, whatever the case may be. So, Yeah, so I've been kind of into this stuff for a while, and I'm sure we'll get into a bunch of the fun stuff. But that's the basics. I mean, I don't know what else to really say.
You and I first met on Clubhouse.
That's right.
And yeah, my like introduction to what you do, aside from your work with Small Town Monsters, because I'm ridiculously obsessed with all that. Hey Tate, um, you said something about some potential wood knocks that you had recorded, and you were like, hey, if anybody wants to hear this, let me know. And I DM'd you right away, and you immediately sent me a link to Dropbox, and I was like, this is so cool. Like this is coming.
Remember that. That's
right.
Yeah.
I
I think that eventually ended up being in the first Beyond the Trail episode. I'm not sure if, but I mean, like I have, at this point, I have a collection of wood knocks from all over the place. So, you know, when you're into Bigfoot, a lot of times that's just what you get. I mean, over time, and then you kind of learn how to compare wood knocks, and it's weird. I don't know. I mean, it's unusual.
That's fascinating stuff. I remember I was at work the next day, and I was like, look, this is an actual Bigfoot researcher that sent me this. Like, look. Tate. Oh, Asher's is here. Hey, Ash. Tate says, I don't know about this guy. Fraud is what comes to mind. Also a fast food employee and pirate. Okay.
All of those are true. None of those are true at the same time.
I was gonna say, I'm assuming he's talking about you because I can't rock the beard, but I did work in fast food for a while. So, what keeps you busy when you are not going on Indiana Jones style adventures into the untamed wilderness? Because that's what you do. Is from what I see, that's what you do. So what else is there?
We try to have fun with it. So I like in between, it's a lot of editing and a lot of working on the stuff. Well, while you're out there, it's only part of it, of course. But no, I mean, obviously, I work another job and I do all kinds of other stuff. But I'm really into the woods a lot. So like I go hiking and camping, and I do that a lot on my own. A little less now, I think, because that's like we go out, like we were just in Florida and we camped, I think 16 nights in a row. So it's like you can only do so much before you're like kind of like, okay, you know.
How do you have time? I didn't know that you did anything other than this stuff, because you do so much. I thought this was the only thing you did. So how do you have time to work another job? Like maybe that's not a question.
Really
It's like maybe that's not a question you can answer, but wow, that's mind blowing.
No, I mean, I don't know. I got out of school back in 2015, and been doing this stuff on the side pretty much since then. That's when I really got into some of the research. I know you had kind of a question about that later, and we can get more into that. But yeah, I don't know. I just kind of got into it, and hoping to kind of go and transition to this really and make this the way forward full time. But
sure.
You do that piece by piece. For a lot of folks, this is just a thing they do on the side for fun, and I think for me, adventure is definitely one of my priorities. And I mean, you got to do this stuff while you can. So that's the sort of way I've approached it. And yeah, somehow it works kind of now, doesn't really. And so that's why I'm hoping to kind of transition away from this kind of two-tier approach. But it can be tough.
That's fascinating, man. Yeah, I had no idea you were doing anything else, because you put out so much. Like it's hard to it's honestly hard to keep up with everything you're doing.
There's a lot going on, that's for sure. And I mean, I'd rather there's a lot going on than almost nothing. So I'm very happy and very thankful for that.
We've got a couple audience things. Adana's here, another one of my sisters. Hi, Adana. Tate says, third member of Beyond the Trail here. Bitches, we can cuss on this show. It's okay. Tate Hieronymus, double parentheses, here to steal the show. Tate is an excellent show stealer. I'll just say that.
The ejected member of Beyond the Trail. What?
I've never been camping with Tate, but
it's an experience you will not forget.
Really?
I'll tell you that. It's a wild time. Yeah, I mean, we have fun. Tate's an awesome guy. Obviously, he's been in quite a few. Yeah, he's been in quite a few Beyond the Trails at this point, and we just got back from this big one down south, and he's in all of them. So he's a good guy. And the Bluff Creek Project and all that stuff. A lot of fun stuff there too.
He's a cool dude. Yeah. Let's see. I'm going to take kind of a hard left here. We talked a little bit about your Sasquatch expeditions, but what about Champ, the Lake Champlain monster, really fascinates you? Because I've heard you speak on that a number of times.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I don't get to do that much these days. Oh yeah, there you go. Awesome.
Yeah, you gave me this at CryptidCon.
Oh, right on. Yep, yep. I love that illustration. I took these old postcards and put in this sort of Champ image and kind of made it look cool. But yeah, I feel like I don't get to talk a lot about Champ anymore these days because I'm mostly doing Bigfoot stuff, which I'm fine with. But I always kind of say the Champ is probably my favorite cryptid. I think there's like literally a stuffed Champ right up here. Yeah, here we go. This
I
is
might
like
see something green.
the
Yeah.
Vermont Lake Monsters. Their kind of logo mascot guy.
There he is.
But yeah, so Lake Champlain, man, it's just such a place. I think the setting. Lake Champlain is probably one of my favorite places in the world. It's just absolutely incredible environment. It's just this huge lake, and if you know the history of it, that's what I think makes it really interesting. And I'm really big in history. I mean, one of the things that I studied, so I've always just been really into history. And knowing the history, I think, of a lot of these locations that we end up going to, for not only beyond the trail but beyond, like a place like Lake Champlain, is an integral part of kind of the mystery, learning about how a place like that was formed, how it used to be part of the ocean. I mean, as recently as 10,000 years ago, supposedly. So that's really a drop in the bucket. That's not a lot of time compared to other places. So the idea that something could have survived and adapted from basically the ocean into a freshwater lake like Lake Champlain, we have fish that have adapted from seafaring fish that have become freshwater fish just over the course of thousands of years. So it's that, and I think the eyewitness stories are really unusual. I mean, not unusual in the sense that they're individually strange, but as a collective, that's one of the best things I think I say with Bigfoot sightings too, is that an individual sighting, while it might be interesting, like let's say if it's from 30 years ago or even from last week, I mean, they're interesting stories, but they're stories at the end of the day. And I think, for me, I try to talk to eyewitnesses and find out, what's going on, what they've had happen, not feed them a story. But once you get a bunch of sightings and put them together, and you maybe start seeing patterns or where certain things are happening. And I think that happens at Lake Champlain with, there's like a seasonal, obviously there is a seasonal sort of characteristic to the sightings in terms of the lake is frozen over for part of the year. Some parts of it aren't, deep under the water, and it goes to 400 something feet deep. And so, yeah, you look at the patterns of where the sightings have happened. A lot of them tend to happen at the mouths of the rivers, which makes sense because there's fish that congregate in those areas. And there's just all these really interesting things like that without kind of going into super sort of specifics. But
go into whatever you want, man.
Yeah,
I'm just excited to hear you talk about this stuff.
The eyewitness stories. I mean, I talked to people when I was doing. It was the first kind of small town monsters on the trail of series that I did, which was in 2017, I think, 2018, around then. And I went out to Lake Champlain and basically shot this solo series. And it was about the Lake Champlain monster, of course, with the researchers. And I talked to people who, I think the oldest sighting I'd had, somebody who was still alive that I could actually hear their story, was the guy, they saw it in like 1959. And it was described as this dinosaur head creature that came out of the water as they were fishing. And there were 6 of them, and they were all like former World War II or Korea vets. So they were like, what do we tell people? And half the guys were like, don't tell anyone, shut up. We don't want to be seen as crazy. And, it wasn't until 20 years later when the media started talking about Champ as a possible thing that they sort of came forward with their story. And I talked to this guy. I mean, he owned like a bait and tackle shop, it was unusual. I don't know why he wasn't like known to be a Champ witness. He just was there. And there was other people as well, former park rangers, people who grew up on that lake fishing, that had seen absolutely massive creatures in the water that wouldn't make sense, even for sturgeon, which can get up to 10 to 12 feet long. I mean, I think that has to do with part of the sightings are definitely misidentifications of animals in the lake, because water does a lot of weird things. And if you're in a 6-foot kayak and a 8-foot sturgeon swims by you, I mean, that's a monster by definition.
That's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've seen pictures like at a lot of the places around the lake. There's this one restaurant in Middlebury, Vermont, that has in like the men's bathroom, they have pictures of like people with their fishing trophies just all over the walls, like a crazy amount. And so they have a couple of these sturgeon that were found in Lake Champlain. One was like the size of like a VW Beetle. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And there's like these guys just standing around it. And it's illegal to fish the sturgeon now in the lake because they're endangered. But back in the day, they used to pull monsters out of there. And a few years ago, Hudson River, which connects to Lake Champlain, although it's divided up by locks, they found a 14-foot sturgeon in there by using a sonar. And there's like a lot of different sturgeons that live in the Hudson River. So, I mean, it's crazy. Like, I don't know. And then you get into the weird metaphysical stuff about, is it the ghost of a plesiosaur? What's going on here? Because a plesiosaur doesn't make any practical sense.
That stuff is fun, man. Like Nick Redfern gets into that in Nessie, like the ghost stuff and the supernatural stuff. That stuff is fun. I don't know how much you buy into it, but it's fun.
I don't know, because like I think about it at times and I'm like, yeah, it makes sense that something like Nessie would be a physical, or a champ would be a physical creature. My personal favorite theory, and I don't know if I necessarily like subscribe to it wholeheartedly, is that it's a giant turtle that has, turtles can elongate their necks, really crazy proportions. And I've talked to a few witnesses, including one who says that he saw what looked like a 15-foot turtle just in the lake.
I was going to say, are you talking like Ogua, beast of what was it, Busco size,
something like that? Like even something. Well, it's interesting. Turtles can elongate their necks in very strange ways. And I think that would make sense, in terms of you don't see these things a lot. I mean, there's sightings every once in a while, but when we were filming something else up there a few years ago, Chasing Legends, and we had this guy that I know now. He's a friend of mine. He's been diving the lake, his whole life, basically. A real cool guy, total badass too, I should say. I mean, I'm like, I've never been in scuba diving, so I don't know if I'd get into it. It's just something about the water. It's a little creepier. Deepest, darkest forest crevasse. I'm like more comfortable in that than probably in some lake where my gas tank is going to get punctured and my air tank, I'm going to freak out.
So at least you can breathe in the forest, like you can breathe.
Right. You can kind of try to escape. But so this guy, the scuba diver, he had an encounter a summer of 2020 of what he described was like a 4-foot long turtleback just pop out of the water. And he was in the middle of the lake in one of the deepest parts. And he's like, it wouldn't make sense for a turtle to be there. And they thought it was a log, because a lot of times logs will just float up through the buoyancy of the lake and everything, and just kind of popped out. And he had to slow down his boat because he thought he was going to hit it, but it sank down and it was completely gone. And he has a pretty sophisticated sonar system in the boat. Didn't see anything. And he told about having a few occasions over the years where they would basically do scans and they'd get like a large, quick moving object in the water that would just go away. And it wasn't like, if you get a school of fish, you can kind of, there's ways to differentiate that. This was like a solid object that would just move away quickly. So yeah, there's just those stories. I mean, with the Champ, I don't know what to make of it. I mean, I haven't really dabbled in it in a while, but I do try to go up there at least once or twice a year up to Lake Champlain. I haven't done documentary about it in a while, but I definitely will love to revisit it sometime, because I don't know what's really going on. Something's going on. Like, something very weird is going on.
Something's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. People who are proficient, with all the other species of fish in that lake, as much as lakes can play tricks on you. And that's, like I said, I think some of the eyewitness sightings are certainly misidentifications. People who are in town see, something weird in the water and it creates like a mirage effect. Sure, that happens, but
I saw the Champ monster. Oh,
yeah, right. But the thing is, like, unlike Loch Ness has a really big tourism draw for Nessie, which is like the main reason people go there. Lake Champlain, you actually have to be pretty hard pressed to find people around the lake who know about Champ. There's almost no tourism draw from the cryptozoology side of it. There's like a few places that sell Champ souvenirs, but you have to search them out. Like, you'll see artwork and depictions of Champ in all these different communities, but it's a 125-mile long lake that's like 13 miles wide at the widest, and down towards the end where the lake starts is Whitehall, New York, which is now known for Bigfoot. And there's like the Bigfoot Festival. There's the Whitehall, the Abear Road incident, of course. And it's funny, and that's where like the first Champs, well, not the first, but the historical Champ sightings in like the 1870s were going on in the Whitehall area, because that section of the lake almost thins out to the point where it's looking like a river, as opposed to up by Burlington, Vermont. I mean, it's 13 miles across to the New York side. So, now you go to Whitehall and you'll have a Bigfoot restaurant, Bigfoot statues, and down the street there's a Champ restaurant. It's like this weird cryptozoology meeting place, different cryptids, but it's cool. I mean, people there can research both, I guess. I know some people that have, like they talk about their family members having champ sightings while they're Bigfoot investigators. And Paul Bartholomew, who's probably one of my favorite researchers from the Northeast, has written extensively about the Aber Road incident and the whole Whitehall Bigfoot region. But he was actually really big into the champ phenomena, and his brother wrote a book somewhere on my bookshelf over there, Champ America's Loch Ness Monster, something like that, which is one of the best books about the champ phenomena. So it's certainly an interesting area, region. And yeah, I mean, I love going up there. It's just that idea that something could be lurking in there, and it's a wonderful environment. It's one of the most biodiverse lakes in the U.S. It's one of the largest. I mean, not compared.
I was going to say 125 miles. You're talking about longer. I have to think of things in terms of Texas measurements.
Yeah,
you're talking about a span longer than the distance between Austin and San Antonio, which takes me 2 hours to drive.
Yep.
So, and that's water. Like, wow.
Yeah, it's like if you go the top part of the lake is in Canada, is in Quebec, the province of Quebec, a very small section. But I know because I've done that border crossing there by, it's like 45 minutes north of Burlington. So, but driving from, let's say, St. Albans, which is the location of the San Romancy photo from 1977, the most famous sort of piece of champ evidence and lake monster evidence really in the world. From St. Albans to Port Henry, New York, which is down towards the southern middle section of the lake, which is called the home of champ, where they have statues and a famous sign with the champ looking like kind of Puff the Magic Dragon-esque sort of weird depiction that they do over there. It's about 2.5 hour drive, I think, and that's not even the tip. If you went from like Whitehall to the Canadian side, I mean, you're looking at 3-4 hours, and a lot of it's back roads too. It's like a road that goes by the lake. There's not like a major interstate highway or anything. You're just driving a 2-lane road through little towns in Vermont and New York. And then you get to Burlington, which is a city, but it's like if you, especially from Texas, it would be like a suburb of Houston or Dallas or something. It's not it's a very small city. It's probably one of the smallest kind of major cities in a state in the U.S. Compared to like even here in New Hampshire. I mean, Manchester is bigger than that. And Boston, of course, dwarfs it, and Boston's not even that big of a city. So it's a pretty rural area. There's a lot of farms and rural communities on both sides of the lake, especially the New York side. That's where you get towards the Adirondacks. So once you go back that way, you got Bigfoot. Down at the southern tip, you've got Whitehall, and then in Vermont, you basically have the Green Mountains on the other side of the lake. So, and there's Bigfoot reports there. I mean, that's where Carrick, St. Laurent, and I had 8 different things thrown at us this past summer at a campsite up there, and we were going to a champ event actually, which is the most ironic part of it. And I've done a video on that, and we've done like sound analysis because all we had were really the sounds of these things being thrown at us. And so yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff up in that area for sure.
It's a hot spot for sure. You got a sea monster surrounded by Sasquatch activity. Like that's
and then of course you've got UFO history there. There's a famous abduction. And I'm not like a super into UFOs, but there's a famous I've seen UFOs and kind of by default, I guess. But famous abduction in like the 80s, Colchester abduction, right on the shores of Lake Champlain.
Familiar with that one. Okay.
And what's really weird is that the eyewitnesses, they were kids at a summer camp. I guess they drew the UFO and it almost looked like it had scales on it. So some people have theorized this champ's some kind of an alien thing that has to do with this abduction. I mean, there's all these wild kind of theories that kind of form over time. I don't know what to make of it, of course, but it's really interesting. I've never seen a UFO depiction that almost looks like they drew scales on it. Very weird.
Wow.
There's been UFO seen coming out of the lake. There's supposedly, this is a kind of a crazy one, there's a ghost pirate ship on the lake, and this is actually a really interesting story. So I used to go up to Montreal every year. My dad's uncle used to live up there before he passed away, and we'd go up there every Thanksgiving. That was kind of our tradition, and we drive straight through St. Albans, which is, as I mentioned earlier, where the San Romancy photo was taken in St. Albans Bay, right in that area. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere around there. But so I always, at this one gas station I remember we stopped at, I always go in there and I always like to talk it up with the clerks. Whenever I'm anywhere around Lake Champlain or any like cryptid spot, I always like to talk to the locals and be like, just ask them as if I'm just some guy walking in, has no idea about the story. Be like, so what's the deal with this whole Champ thing? Like very casually, and I'll talk to them. And over the years, I've gotten some interesting stories. I heard one of the years they told me about that supposedly St. Albans was the home of the furthest north battle of the Civil War that ever happened. There was a bunch of Confederate POWs, or they were in Canada, right? They're POWs, and what they would do is they would escape to Canada. They'd escape from prisoner of war camps in the Union in the northern states, and they'd go to Canada. Canada was neutral or tacitly supported the Confederacy. I don't remember if it was part of the British Empire at that time still.
I never hear much about Canada during the Civil War. Like
It's
in my
weird,
mind,
right?
in my mind, Canada just materialized in the mid 19th century.
I don't know when they separated from England, but I know the British like supported the Confederacy, and they had some kind of relations because they were probably still bitter from the Revolution and the War of 1812 or something. I don't know. That's geopolitics.
They've been mad for a while.
Right. So, but my point being is that there were some Confederates in Canada, which again, 45-minute drive to the Canadian border from St. Albans. They launched a bank robbery in the town. Now, some people dispute, saying, "Oh, it wasn't really a battle; it was just a failed bank robbery," and they all ended up getting killed or rounded up by local police and that sort of thing. But it was like this big shootout, and some people consider it the furthest north battle of the Civil War, which is kind of interesting. And so I heard that story from one of the clerks, and then another year I heard about like a haunted theater in the area. I've heard some Champ stuff, heard a UFO story at one point, but then I think this was the year before COVID, like 2019, I want to say. I don't know if that was the last time I went. I believe it was 2019, or maybe it was 2018. Doesn't matter. They told me about this ghost pirate ship story on the lake that supposedly on foggy nights a ghostly pirate ship will emerge in St. Albans Bay. And there actually was piracy on Lake Champlain, which is pretty crazy. It was during Thomas Jefferson's presidency. There was an embargo with Canada because, again, Canada was under the British at that time for sure. And there's this place in Vermont called Smuggler's Notch, which is now kind of a ski area, but it's called Smuggler's Notch because they used to smuggle stuff through there. And they'd smuggle it to Lake Champlain. And there was this one ship called the Black Snake that had a crew of guys, and they would go and smuggle stuff up into Canada and vice versa, bring it back. And then they got into some kind of confrontation with the local lawmen. And this wasn't like Johnny Depp Pirates of the Caribbean pirates. These guys were armed, but were not looking out for conflict. And I guess they got into some tiff with some privateers or something that were hired by, some kind of guys that were hired by the government. They weren't the U.S. military, and they weren't law enforcement, but they were, I guess, back in the day, privateers were easier. And they got stuck in some river when they were in there. And it wasn't a big boat, Black Snake, and they had some kind of cannon, and they shot it, and they killed two guys, and they all got really kind of scared because of what they had done. They ended up all getting captured, and they hung them all in Burlington, Vermont. I think it was the state's biggest public execution at the time. And this was like in the early 1800s. It might have been before the War of 1812. But I know and so, there were pirates on the lake. So maybe they say that supposedly it's the Black Snake ship, it's all those guys that were killed, and their souls and the ship still haunt the lake. I mean, you get a lot of these stories. I'm not really a big ghost guy per se, but I find it interesting, It's
an interesting tangential connection because you've got sea monsters, sea serpent, plesiosaur, and then, a ghost ship that also has a snake name. Like, that's pretty interesting.
It is weird. And it's just one of those things, I think, when you get a big body of water, it doesn't matter how, large it is, really, you get weird stories. People have always been uncomfortable with the water. I mean, Jaws, that sort of thing. Think about that. How many people they see deep, dark water, and that dun, 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 dun starts playing in their head. It's just, water has always been mysterious to us. And Lake Champlain is a massive body of water for a freshwater lake. It's also really weird. It's one of the only lakes in the world, I believe, that flows northwards as opposed to south, because it connects from the south. On the south, it connects to the Hudson River, which then goes down and empties out by New York City. In the north, it's the Richelieu River, which eventually goes into Canada and becomes part of the St. Lawrence River, and then into the Bay of St. Lawrence, or whatever it's called. So that's where it empties out into the ocean. And so it used to be an arm of the sea about 10,000 years ago, supposedly. Like, as I said, they don't really know 10 to 12,000 years ago, but the state fossil of Vermont is a whale, because they've discovered whale bones a couple miles from the now shore of the lake while digging railroad beds, and it was beluga whales, and we know that they lived in that area, so it's kind of unusual. So yeah, like I said, I think you really need the backdrop to kind of understand a little bit about the story of Champ and why it might be plausible. Unless we're just going to say it's a ghost or something, then I think it's easier to explain it that way, but than a physical creature. But still, the sightings, like I said, I've heard some really interesting sightings, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think it was
That's my favorite cryptid.
I think it was Jacques Vallée that said, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he was the one that said you shouldn't explain an unknown with another unknown. Was that him? I could be wrong.
I don't know. Maybe it was. I usually do tend to kind of stick to that, but I mean, sometimes things get so weird that it's just how do you explain it? At least in the conventional method of what we understand,
Sure.
3D world. We're not really, I don't think, ready for. Maybe in 50 years we'll understand what some of these weird paranormal things are. It's like trying to explain cell phones to somebody in the 1800s. You're probably going to get burnt at the stake for doing that. Like witch, sorcerer, or whatever. So it makes it interesting, though. It's definitely interesting. What is evidence? Would that change over time? I get stuck thinking about this stuff a lot. It can get interesting once you really kind of dive into it.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you've found out and know.
Yeah, man. Like it really doesn't matter what direction you go with this unsolved stuff. It's a deep rabbit hole. Like every direction is a deep rabbit hole. I'd like to hit a few comments and questions.
I've been in a ton. Yeah.
There's a lot here. Let's see if we can get through them all. I don't know. Maybe we'll do our best. Tate, will Aleks make a documentary of Champ, not for STM, but as a project by Aleks? You kind of answered that earlier.
I probably will. I mean, yeah, I probably will. I mean, I'd do another one for STM too, if there was new evidence or something new that emerged. And there's certain things I'd redo about the way I did my first one, and I don't want to get into that too much because there's a lot of drama involved, but. There's certain things and certain people I wouldn't really include, and yeah, we'll leave it at that.
Okay, so yeah, maybe we're getting another Petakov Media Champ documentary. Let's see. Art of the Morning Star, my good friend Mike, is water billions of years old, or does water get old? I read an anecdote once that all water that exists is just being recycled through the atmosphere. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I mean, water's pretty impressive if you think about it. Bruce Lee, he had the famous quote that you can't kill or hurt water, but it can destroy everything, and everyone needs it for life. You can't live without it. So water is the supreme entity, supreme thing on this planet, at least how this planet works. And yeah, it's pretty interesting.
And we've been talking a lot about sea monsters. That's funny.
Yep.
Our good friend Asher, I love Champ, and I'm glad Aleks has chosen to be a champion. Me too, for real.
Gotta love Champ. I have a whole Champ collection of stuff and Champ memorabilia up here. So it's I just think it's underrepresented. It's probably, in terms of lake monster, it has the most amount of evidence of any lake monster. A lot of the traditional Loch Ness stuff has kind of fallen to the wayside or been disproven or something else. That's the one everyone knows about, but I think Champ has a lot more going for it than Loch Ness. And I'm a little bit more skeptical of Loch Ness than I am of Champ.
Me too. I think the Loch Ness monster is dead. That's just my take.
Yeah, I could believe that.
I think it's dead.
Unless it's a ghost, then it's already dead. So
yeah, see, then you just get it gets so metaphysical. Yeah. There's some talk about sturgeons. Let's see. Rev Werewolf, OG Wampa. Yeah, this is a 1960, 1970 something Kenner Wampa. I keep him next to my Cryptid Comforts Yeti because, he's the Yeti of Star Wars. Just take a nap there, buddy. Let's see. Hello to everybody who's joined. Art of the Morning Star is Champ cold-blooded.
Yeah, I mean, if it's some kind of a reptile or an amphibian, it would have to be, right? I think the term is ectotherm. Or is that for elephants? I don't know. My brain is not working that well tonight. No, it would have to be. And what's interesting is people say, "Oh, how could it live in an environment like Vermont? It gets so cold there, so much snow. The lake freezes over. It's brutal winters." There are reptiles and amphibians that live in that area. You have huge snapping turtles that live in the lake, and what do? They bury themselves in the mud for months at a time. So there's a
Yeah.
precedent for smaller amphibians and reptiles, and there's plenty of snakes, and there's no lizards, but there's snakes and tons of different species of turtles actually on Lake Champlain. So the precedent is there, and I'd imagine it would probably be some kind of cold-blooded animal. I don't think it's a
Okay.
mammal or anything along those lines.
Okay. Amphibious or reptilian or somewhere in that spectrum. Okay. Tate, question, Aaron, what beer are you drinking? Yingling traditional lager. We just got Yingling in Texas recently, so that's all I've been drinking. Let's see. I don't want to skip anybody. All the weird. Damn, what if it's the ghost of a dinosaur? Yeah, we've mentioned that a couple times. That's a possibility, man. I'm here for it. Greg also says Aleks has the best beard game in cryptozoology. Fight me. Okay. Jonathan Dodd, he's like the Gimli of cryptozoology. Okay. How do you feel about that?
My axe.
My axe.
Sure, why not?
Asher says we have the most handsome men in the field within our little group. I would tend to agree. I think they're all lookers. Let's see.
Aaron, yeah, you're stealing the hearts, Aaron.
Nah, I'm just a boy on the internet. I skipped something up here. Yeah, I skipped something up here that was good. Oh yeah, Jonathan Dodd. Oh, okay. So here's a question that I'm just going to field, and then one for you. Art of the Morning Star, Mike asks, are cryptids in charge of cryptocurrency? I think you are better off buying stock in the classification of Mothman than you are buying into cryptocurrency long term. That's my opinion. And then Jonathan asks, what other cryptids would Aleks consider doing research on?
Good question. Now, I will say there actually recently was a crypto coin that was launched.
Heard about that.
Yes, I think it's cryptid coin, I believe, but yeah, it's interesting. But I don't know if you've gotten that. I remember even years ago when crypto was first starting, I was getting so many messages about, hey, crypto, are you into crypto? Because cryptozoologists, and then people think that has to do with crypto, like Bitcoin.
I'm getting really tired of seeing cryptocurrency stuff pop up in my feed under the cryptozoology tag. I'll just say that.
It's changed, though, because now it's spam. Now it's straight up spam. It's like, get crypto here, But it used to be like 3-4 years ago when it was first starting, I would get messages from people saying, do you know about crypto? Like, I'd love to learn about it. I'm like, I'll send you to someone else who actually, this is like a different type of crypto. So it was just funny. But which cryptids would I like to research? Man,
Sorry.
It's a little cliche, I guess, but probably the thylacine. I just would love to get to a place like Tasmania. I just have seen some of the beauty there in terms of like the natural settings. I think that would be really cool. Another cryptid would be the otang, which is sort of the Bigfoot of South Africa. I recently learned about that, and I was born in South Africa, so that's kind of like I've always been interested in the mysteries down there, and it's a wild place. It really is. So the otang is sort of their Bigfoot in that area. And then another one would be definitely the Yeti. Most of them are Bigfoot related, like I guess Mokele and Mbembe probably would be interesting in the Congo.
That's an interesting one.
You pretty much have a higher chance of dying of malaria or being kidnapped by some sort of a guerrilla group than finding a dinosaur in the Congo. But hey, if you live to tell the tale, it's pretty cool, right?
There's still that chance. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. And then I guess I'd love to go look for other animals that aren't necessarily cryptids, but I think there's animals that are cryptic. So there's like this one crocodile in Burundi in East Africa called Gustav. I'm really interested in crocodiles and that kind of thing. But Gustav they did like a horror movie about him, but they've done some documentaries. He was one of the largest Nile crocodiles ever supposedly seen, and he's on record to have killed upwards of 300 people. Total man-eater, like has eaten people from local villages, and he's seen every few years. And crocodiles are like a lot of reptiles. They can live very long lives, and they don't stop growing. They keep growing, especially if they have the needs, to sustain themselves. So this guy supposedly is upwards of 20 feet, which would be an absolute record for a Nile crocodile. So, and he's seen every once in a while, and then there will be a rumor that he was killed or that, he was captured, which is capturing something like that. They tried to get him, but he's real. He's known to exist. It's just, he's seen so infrequently. I think it'd be interesting to do creatures that are just hard to find like that. That's sort of Yeah, it's kind of, I think it kind of fits into cryptozoology. I'm into the whole mountain lion thing too, so those are real animals, of course, and that's,
Actually, have a question for you about that.
yeah.
We have a audience question. A lot of really good audience questions in the comments. We're going to do our best to get to them. But since we're here, let's see. Bigfoot Stacy Brown of Outcast Paranormal asked, I heard he found a panther track. Can he tell us about that? Not sure when or where, but I'd love to hear about it.
Thanks, Stacy. That's obviously Stacy from Florida. We were just hanging out with him and his whole Outcast Paranormal crew. Awesome dudes. And, you know, everyone's, and Tate and Eli and everyone, and Stacy got in that too. They've been kind of ripping me because I wouldn't stop talking about that Panther track. So, but I will talk about it now. Nobody can stop me from talking about it. So
it's your platform, bro. I'm just here.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, some people might be familiar with my documentary called Lions of the East, which it's a little bit of a glare. Did a few years ago, and that one was about the mountain lion mystery up here in the Northeast. I found that, you know, going to a lot of events and like Bigfoot type things, I would get probably the most amount of sightings of mountain lions. People would say, well, I haven't seen Bigfoot, but I swear I've seen a mountain lion. And I think it's a lot easier for people to wrap their minds around something like that existing because they used to live here in the entire eastern United States. So their kind of known range to this day, or at least in modern times, is kind of the Rocky Mountains and the Dakotas and westward. So they've been extirpated or they've gone extinct in this part of the U.S. in the Northeast. But there's one population that's known in Florida, and it's called the Florida Panther. But it's actually just a group of mountain lions that live in that environment. And there's today they think there's around 300 plus individuals. They've done some programs where they brought in cats from Texas that were the most genetically similar and had them breed and kind of bump the numbers up. But we were down there in the Everglades and Big Cypress Preserve specifically. And so we were doing our skunk ape stuff. This was this past January. And I being interested in the panther stuff, I had done a lot of research on it before. And I was working with awesome guy named Scott who has an app called the Bigfoot Mapping Project. He's on Instagram. Really nice guy. Very highly recommend the app. It's only like a few bucks, but he also has a website for free where you can go and check. It's just all this different kind of aggregated data and GIS put together with Bigfoot sightings from the BFRO to all these other databases, the Oregon Bigfoot site, which actually gathered a lot of reports from other parts of the country, not just Oregon. So he basically took all that stuff and plotted in the map so you can go and look for Bigfoot sightings. And so I was working with him and he was making us a custom map, which had wildlife corridors through the state of Florida. Because I was thinking, you know, an area like the Everglades and Big Cypress is larger than the size of the state of Rhode Island in terms of wilderness, you know, protected area. But you've got all this other human encroachment. And I know I've heard you say you're from Florida. And so like there's a lot of woods in Florida though, but there's tons of population. It's always growing. You know, the population of Florida went from just under 1 million in 1920 to 20 million in 2020. So when it's 100 years, it grew 20 million, but all that population is all Tampa, Miami, Orlando.
Yeah.
It's like very confined to the coast and little.
There's a lot of unpopulated, unmapped, unexplored space in between them. And a lot of it is, sorry to cut you off, but a lot of it is swamp and forest and it's very dense. Sorry, please go on. Sorry.
No, that's exactly what we were targeting with the skunk ape and the Bigfoot stuff. But so being in Big Cypress and seeing how many reports of panthers there were and track findings and all that kind of stuff, I had the idea to go set up game cameras to see if we could get any panther stuff. And so we're walking in there in this one area where there's been recent reports, and it's like this environment's 90% water. I mean, the Everglades is called the River of Grass.
It's a swamp in the middle of the ocean. That's what Florida is.
And especially the Everglades is like the wettest of any part of Florida. And you have all these sunken prairies where if you're looking at it from the road, it's, you know, tall grass, whatever. It looks like a field, but you walk in, it's all actually inches of water, a couple inches of water, and this is the dry season. We're in there, but we're walking in. We happen to find, you know, there's some game trails. You can kind of tell the way that the sawgrass is parted, and we found one kind of muddy area. And you know, I've been finding little tiny prints of raccoons and that sort of stuff. But then I found this incredible footprint that was distinctly feline. I mean, absolutely incredible. You could even see the claw in the front two digits on the cat. And I thought bobcat at first because it was very small. I mean, it was like 3 inches, you know, across and top to bottom. And I thought bobcat, because if I saw that here in New Hampshire, we get some big bobcats. That would be a very large bobcat. I'm like, panthers have to be bigger. I found panther tracks out west, and they're a lot bigger, or, you know, mountain lions. But with Bergman's rule, where animals get smaller the closer they are to the equator, I guess the Florida panther, like Florida black bear and deer, you got a panther of your own there.
He's been over here messing with me for the last like 2 minutes. I'm like, all right, just chill, dude. Sorry. Go
No,
on.
it's fine. It's so they get smaller. Like all these animals get smaller the closer they are to the equator. So deer in Florida, I mean, I saw tracks. I was like, what? You guys call this deer? This is like a fawn up in the north. Like the animals get larger, and then you get to a place like Alaska, everything's, even the moose are twice as big as the other ones. So I guess Florida panthers are smaller. So we found that track, which was really exciting, and got to take some pictures of it, measurements. Didn't have any casting material. Don't know how it would have come out anyway because it was a wet, muddy area. Plaster probably would have ruined it. I don't have much experience casting in an area that's like 90% water, so it's a little out of my wheelhouse. But
it's hard to do anything in that environment, just from personal experience.
It's amazing, and I love the environment. I absolutely do, but it's so challenging to work in, and even in the winter, the winter months, which is the dry season. So I only can imagine for the summer months, and hats off to those dudes who are out there in the summertime. All those teams, and I know some researchers that are down there, and they get out there when it's 100% humidity and 100 degrees. I'm like, that sounds awful to me. I do not want to do that. I'll go down in January and February. That's fine with me.
That's my childhood right there. Yeah, 90 to 100% humidity.
I'm not a huge fan of humidity. I prefer the dry heat out west. It can be 100 degrees, but you step in the shade and it's 70. So so the Panther track was interesting, and like I said, those guys like to kind of roast me a little bit for it, but it was pretty cool. It was I submitted the track to the Florida Wildlife Commission. They have a panther tracker,
cool.
And so that's now on the map for one of the most recent panther tracks. Because like I said, there's only 300 or so in the wild, and a lot get killed every year by cars. So yeah, I know my answers are extremely long. So I apologize.
Dude, no, I just wanted to hang out with you.
Like in the comments that
no. I just wanted to hang out with you. Like, no, this is super cool. The tagline for this show is, this is the interview show I started because I wanted an excuse to hang out with people I like on the internet. So no, I'm all here for it.
Heck yeah.
Mike, Art of the Morningstar, how successful would a Super Smash game be, but with cryptids? I'm going to field that one very successful.
That would be awesome.
Well, I'd play the hell out of that.
Oh gosh. I'm blanking on the card game. What is it? It's like the Pokemon style one. Man, they were at CryptidCon. How am I forgetting here?
I think it's MetaZoo.
MetaZoo. I'm sorry. I totally blanked out. But yeah, MetaZoo. I mean, that's like all cryptids, like Pokemon, but with cryptids, basically, right?
Yeah, they do some neat stuff.
It's very cool. I think it's pretty neat. I mean, I'm not into that like I used to be when I was a kid, but it's pretty cool. So like, I think that would be awesome. A video game where cryptids are beating the heck out of each other. Like I would
I'd
love
play
that,
it.
Man.
Hey.
I'd love to see who would be the come out on top for that.
Yeah. Sorry, my
like
dude's messing with my tripod here. Get out of here. Yeah. Chupacabra could be like Pikachu, all super fast and stuff. Hello to everybody who's jumped in the last little bit. Good to see you all. Are you down to do like a quick trivia question thing with me?
Go for it. I'm an open book. Yeah.
Yeah. So I sent you the trivia question earlier. Do you remember what it was?
I don't. I remember. I read part of it, but I was at work and.
You're a busy dude. No, that's all right. It's cool. So I would like to give away a copy of Tentacles by Roland Smith.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And the question. Do you remember the question now?
No.
That's totally cool, man. No, I'm sorry. I sent it to you like 3 hours ago. Like it was very recent. This is a question for the audience. Whoever pops up in the comments here first with the correct answer, you win a copy of Tentacles by Roland Smith, as well as some Hey Strangeness stickers and actually some MetaZoo cards because I don't want them. So, what year was the giant squid officially discovered?
Good question.
And there's actually 2 answers I'll accept, so interested to see who gets it. Everybody's flipping away to Google now.
Right.
I wanted to ask it without warning, so that way people wouldn't have time to look the answer up. What year? Jonathan Dodd draws 2006, baby! Yes!
Ooh.
Jonathan Dodd got it. Asher's is also correct. 2004, that was the year it was first photographed.
Okay.
2006 is the year that the specimen was first like retrieved. So Jonathan wins the book, and I'm going to send Asher's a bunch of other shit. So it'll be great.
Good job,
It'll
guys.
be great.
You guys know your cryptids.
Well done, everybody.
Former cryptids, I guess. It's not really a cryptid anymore.
Yes, I love.
It moved on from that life.
I love that example because it's a great example of a creature that was a cryptid that became a classified species. I think that's important.
Yeah, that's one I always usually point to in my presentations. Is that the okapi, mountain gorilla, coelacanth, megamouth shark, which I guess wasn't really. It was just kind of like, whoa, what the heck is this thing? It was not like maybe there were sightings of it, but it's a cool one.
Yeah. You could argue half the shit on the ocean floor is a cryptid, technically.
Dude.
In my opinion.
It's just straight up aliens. I mean, like, aliens colonize the Earth, and it's at the bottom of the ocean. They're not the aliens we think of coming in flying saucers. They just, like, plopped a bunch of shit at the bottom of the ocean floor, and we're like, let's see what happens. That's, like, anglerfish. Like, that's just the beginning.
That's an abomination in the
what
nature. That's
lie there. Who knows?
It's an affront to God. I do need to get your opinion on something. We have a couple more audience questions I'd like to get to, but I got to get your opinion on this. The Texas Terror Dog, or the renaming of the Texas Chupacabra. I think you're probably familiar with all that. I just really like to get your opinion.
Yeah, I think it's probably better to. I've always had an issue with the whole, American or Texan, whatever, Mexico, Texas kind of Chupacabra thing. I just think it's like, it's really an insult to the original Chupacabra in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Come on. And so I remember one time there's this guy, Pine Barrens Institute. It was like the funniest tweet. I always bring it up when someone asks about the Chupacabra. He was like, I think the American Chupacabra is a piece of shit. I was like, I think that sums it up because
I'll take that. Yeah.
The original Chupacabra story is awesome. So Texas Terror Dog, I think, is good. Like, no offense, mangy mutt down there, but like, you're just not a Chupacabra. You weren't cut out to be a Chupacabra.
It's not the same thing. No. It's just.
And I get like people do the semantics thing with like, oh, well, it's just a name. It's like very generic. But it's like Bigfoot. You could say it just has a connotation to it. So the Chupacabra, when you think of it, it shouldn't be mutt strolling down the road. It should be that weird alien thing in the El Yunque rainforest in Puerto Rico. Like we're stealing it from them. Like in the South, I get that the Southeast and everything, or Southwest, they want to have that, but like it's uniquely part of the Puerto Rican kind of folklore.
I agree. Thank you very much. I agree 100%. People who agree with you include Seth Breedlove, Lyle Blackburn, and Ken Gerhard. JSYK.
It's a good group there.
Yeah. I ask everybody who comes on this show that question because I think it's really important. So I appreciate that. Very important
for sure.
Okay, couple audience questions here. This is from our friend Nick of California Creepypasta.
Well, what's up, dude?
Miss Nick, he's a good dude. How has documentary filmmaking influenced your investigation approach?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because a lot of times, I've really only stepped out in front of the camera in the past few years. Before that, when I did documentaries, I was like focused on the other researchers or covering the subject, and I tried to be really absent from it. Whereas like stuff like Beyond the Trail, it's very much like, you're a part of it. So before, being able to do field work before, you're kind of just doing it without the camera there. So now we're sort of conscious that the camera's there, and I always try to show stuff. Like when we were finding, let's say, that panther track down in the Everglades, Big Cypress, we'll make sure like we always have somebody filming because I don't want it to be like I'm trying to do something on purpose for the camera. Like we'll do these little bits where we explain what we're about to do because I think that's just makes sense. Like that's not us staging what's going to happen. We're like, we are about to go into this swamp, like, and we tell our game plan, right? And then what's nice is we'll have somebody there filming. All of us have cameras, in the case we're in Florida, it's Tate, myself, and Eli, and each of us has a different camera, so we can catch different stuff. So we just try to make it as organic as possible, that this is like what we're experiencing while out there. And if something happens, we try to show people. I think it's in that sense that we've really tried to just make it feel like you're coming along for the ride, as opposed to, I don't know, sort of babying you and making you feel like we're doing this contrived kind of stuff for the camera. And we don't typically like to do that.
Speaking of that, because you guys don't do that, and that's one thing that has always, that's the first thing, the primary thing that drew me to your work and to Small Town Monsters and Tate and all you guys. Just you approach this stuff in an honest way. But this is in the notes I sent you. Do you have any pet peeves within the paranormal or cryptozoology niche? Maybe I'm just curious.
I do. I have a lot of them. I don't know. I think, when it's like larger, because I'm mostly doing the Bigfoot stuff, it's just, there's just a lot of BS. Like, it's just so much crap. You got to weed through the crap. And then, like, I guess if it's a really specific pet peeve, it's like the rehabilitation of those kind of like American lumberjack stories, like that have become cryptids. I don't know. Like, I think it's fine, like the squonk and all that kind of stuff. And I saw some people talking about that, and like, what is the one that throws wood at people? Maybe that
squonk did get some mentions earlier in the comments. Yeah,
I think I saw that. But there's that one, the aggro pelter, right? Throws stuff at people. Maybe that's like a juvenile Sasquatch up in a tree throwing stuff at people. I don't know. But sometimes, like, I feel like that stuff gets. What I see is other people think that's like a legit cryptid. And I guess I'm sort of. I'll be honest. Like, I don't think a majority of cryptids are real in like a flesh and blood sense. A lot of the more outlandish ones. But, when you get in the paranormal side, stuff like the Dover Demon, Mothman, that's a different, I think it's cool that they're cryptids, but it's kind of a different sort of thing going on to itself.
Yeah.
But I like, cryptids for me that have some of the biggest evidence or the most believable stuff like Bigfoot, some lake monsters, sea monsters for sure. I mean, we're talking about the ocean, like there's all kinds of stuff in there. And then, mountain lions, thylacines, previously thought extinct animals that could be holding on, to their existence. But I guess some of the more outlandish ones I just typically kind of shy away from, if that makes sense.
Well, so totally.
Like I said, not like a huge pet peeve. It's just I see people like, and I don't know if anyone's actually legit going at, like the Hodag. I love the Hodag. It's an awesome story, and it was fun meeting those Hodag guys.
But we know where that came from.
No, exactly. And I'm not throwing shade on them or like.
No, love the Hodag. Love the Hodag store.
Yep,
wonderful piece of the mythology and
totally.
of the culture. But we know there's no Hodag. We know that. Of course.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool if there was one, and but yeah, so that's just like personal pet peeve. But I don't know. Aside from that, it's just issues with like I said, mostly Bigfoot, just because I see a lot of. I think my biggest issue is not even like I see some of the extreme believers that are like mixing other things like politics into it and whatever, and like I typically like to shy away from that because I think we're inundated with so much of that like political crap as it is that I really want it to be like a place where it's just like I'm out here looking for Bigfoot. And I get like there can be political implications, like if you're talking about national parks, like that's run by the government, right? And if you're a believer that there's a big Bigfoot conspiracy, then I guess that could fit into there. But I think it's just that the extreme believers. But I think what bothers me more is like the scofftics. Is a term I've heard used, which I really like. Where I think being skeptical is great. Like it's good to have skepticism about any claim. You tell me you saw Bigfoot. If you're my friend or not, I'm gonna prod a little bit. I'm not just gonna believe you wholesale. Yeah. But I think these people who sort of scoff at the idea entirely and they just get there's some people that get so toxic and obsessed with just demeaning others because they're like, oh, you believe in something like Bigfoot, you're an idiot. Because I know people who have had sightings that they want nothing to do with that story. They'll tell you once they trust you, but they don't want to ever have their face out there associated with the story. And a lot of times it's traumatic for them. Like they have had personal things that they've suffered through because of that encounter. And I mean like being ostracized by their family or being made fun of or being like the butt of the joke. So here's the Bigfoot guy, were you on LSD? So like I think it harms those people because then they see the scoffdick kind of attitude and they're like, man, I will never tell my story. There's a lot of people, and I really do think this, that have pretty good Bigfoot evidence and stories that just will not come out with those stories because they see reality TV, they see the way the subject's portrayed, and they're just like, yeah, no, I do not want to be associated with this stuff. I can't blame them.
I can't either. Not to put any of the TV shows or any of the big names on blast, but I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm saying personally, not to put them on blast, but I don't want to be those guys either. So like I get what you're saying. I get why people will want to stay in the background and
it sucks.
Not come forward with this stuff.
There's tons of people that have great stories, And a lot of times talking about traumas that you've had can like help alleviate. And I know a couple eyewitnesses that have had some pretty traumatic things that have happened that have talked to people, whether it be professionally or just people who, you know, interview people, and like it's like a load off their chest, like being able to realize like there are other people who have had similar experiences. They're not crazy, they weren't on drugs, they just happen to be out in the woods hunting or doing whatever it is that they were doing, logging, just going about their business, walking their dog, and they happen to cross paths with something like a Bigfoot. So it's, yeah, they're not alone, but I can understand that feeling. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
I guess probably my frustration. Again, very long answer to a
Dude,
short
no, I
question.
love it. I love it. I love it. No, man, I always enjoy talking to you. I find anytime you're talking, I'm interested in what you have to say. So no, I just appreciate you making time to be here. Let's see. One more audience question from earlier in the day I really wanted to get to. Have you ever had a dangerous encounter with some other type of animal while searching for Bigfoot? That comes from Instagram from @H_Ether98. Thank you. Thank you, Heather. That's a cool question.
Encounter. That is a good question.
Because I've seen your posts where like you're getting ready for an expedition and like, okay, here's all the gear I'm taking, and there's always self-defense items in there, which of course you gotta have. You're going into the wilderness, you don't know what you're gonna run into.
Tate's probably the most dangerous animal I've run into.
He's a very dangerous animal. He sent a question, like a question into the private chat that is cigarette emoji, beer emoji, gun emoji equals skull and crossbones emoji. And then he also put it in the chat. That's probably true. Cigarettes,
So
alcohol,
like
and guns equal death.
Like,
yeah.
Tate, you don't know. You can just be sitting there in camp and then you're getting bluff charged by him the next moment.
Yeah.
You never know. No, I'm joking.
I really want to go camping with Tate. I feel like that would be a surreal experience.
You'll not have a dull moment. He's a super funny guy, like extremely amusing guy. True character. That's why we keep him around. But no, to answer your question, I mean, I've never personally had an encounter that I probably have that I'm not aware of. I've had a couple of run-ins with moose that were sort of the biggest, like up here in New England, the biggest thing I worry about in the woods is moose. They're the largest animal in North America, basically. Except for maybe some of those grizzlies up in Alaska, but their moose are monstrously large up there too. But around here we get black bears, and like, you know, unless the black bear is a badass and he knows that he's huge, they're usually, or if they've been fed by people and they lose that fear of humans, you shout and they'll go away. But moose are genuinely terrifying. I mean, they can get up to 1,200 pounds and they will stomp your ass if you get in between a mother and you know, the cow and the calves. It can be pretty rough. So yeah, moose probably. I've had a couple run-ins. One time up in northern Maine, I was camping with my brother on a riverbank, and we're up in the extreme wilderness in northern Maine, which we did our Beyond the Trail up there, kind of in a similar area. It's the least populated area anywhere east of the Rocky Mountains. It's literally insane. There's no cell phone coverage for like 3 hours. You drive in. It's totally wild. Hunter's paradise. It's really one of the last true wildernesses in New England, in terms of the remoteness. So we're camping up by a riverbed, and we'd heard some possible like knocks the night before, and we thought it was interesting. But then in the morning, my brother wakes me up at 6 a.m. He says, "Do you hear that?" And I hear this, what sounds like an elephant running through the trees, and it runs right past the tent to the point where I could see the silhouette of this moose and then another one, and like it's running, and they're loud and big animals. So the whole ground was shaking. And I'm like gripping a 12 gauge shotgun thinking like, oh God, please do not come through the tent. Because I love moose. They're one of my favorite animals. I would absolutely hate to have to kill something, but if it's, you know, a life or death situation.
Yeah, but they will kill you.
Oh yeah. They attack snowmobilers up here all the time. They get this brainworm thing where it like rots away their brain and they get very irritable easily. So it's a very sad thing to see. Like
mad cow disease kind of?
It's like a parasite that eats their brain, and towards the end of their life, they'll just walk in a circle until they die. Very sad. And I don't know if you've ever seen really like shows sad. Like Northwoods Law, those kinds of shows like that takes place here in New Hampshire. And you know, they'll show what they do is they put the animal down when they see it like in that state. It's worthless. But yeah, so I mean, we've been around mountain lions. Obviously, down in Florida, we found that panther track. We were on the heels of one in Washington. You know, all over the place. We've been in areas where there are dangerous animals, but I'm not as generally as worried about animals. I mean, I do, like you said, I do carry self-defense stuff, whether it be, some kind of either a bear spray or usually a firearm. And that's just, just because I think it's a little bit of a kind of safety element. Like,
That's common sense. I mean, you don't know,
yeah,
you have no idea what you're going to run into out
I
there.
mean, like, I would not recommend going out into areas with mountain lions and especially up in places like Alaska, but places with mountain lions and moose, I wouldn't recommend going out there without at least some sort of protection. It doesn't have to be a firearm. It can be, bear spray or something like that. A lot of people carry horns because that'll frighten a bear for sure. But yeah, it's just kind of makes sense, common sense. It's kind of it's like another tool I just bring out with me. I'm bringing my other equipment, and a 357 revolver happens to be my kind of choice out in the woods with some high powered ammunition, because like I said, moose are the primary threat. But honestly, of animals, like I said, I'm not really worried about animals for the most part. As long as you're smart and don't push your luck, you're okay. The most kind of scary situations have either been other humans, which humans suck, or weather.
Oh, people are the worst. Yeah.
Yeah, weather, terrain, like almost dying on the side of a mountain, that kind of stuff. That's more been the threats, I guess.
Interesting. Aleks, I've had you for over an hour. I don't want to keep you too long, man. I could talk to you all night long.
Oh, good stuff. And I enjoyed talking with you for sure.
This is so much fun. Yeah. Well, a couple like closing questions for you. What upcoming projects are you working on that you can talk about?
Sure.
That you're excited about?
Yeah, so right now we are working on 5 different Beyond the Trail episodes. I guess we're kind of, I don't know if we're rebranding it. We're basically going to be called Bigfoot Beyond the Trail from now on.
Okay.
Which is sort of was kind of implied, but it's going to be Bigfoot Beyond the Trail. So when we were down in Florida and Georgia, we filmed 5 different episodes. So the first one that's going to be coming out, I believe, next week. We're still in the editing process, where Eli and I are splitting it. Is going to be it's called the Sawgrass Skunk Ape, and that's about the Big Cypress Preserve, specifically kind of that Everglades area. Then there's going to be another one that's the Green Swamp area up towards Tampa. Then there's going to be the Ocala National Forest, and then the Panhandle area of Florida. And those are not titles; they're just kind of the regions. So the Panhandle.
No, I love it though. You're describing like all my old stomping grounds.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah,
it was the Panhandle. We got to go up there with Stacy Brown, of course, who asked the Panther question earlier, who got some pretty interesting thermal video up in that area and has been researching that area. And then we had a North Georgia episode, which kind of ended in disaster and pouring rain for a few days, which was rough, but it was interesting. So yeah, we have that, and then aside from that, we do have some more Beyond the Trail adventures. But I'm probably most excited for Alaska, which is coming up in May, I believe. I don't know if I'm allowed to say when, but sometime in the spring / early summer, we're going to be going up to Alaska. And Seth is going to be we're going to be helping him with that too, the On the Trail of Bigfoot, the Last Frontier, of course. But we're going to be doing a separate project, Eli and I, which is probably going to be one of the biggest Beyond the Trails we've done yet, and it's going to take us to one of the most remote places we could possibly go. And I'm just freaking out and beyond excited. So we're just kind of counting the months, I guess, until then. So,
dude, I can't wait for that. Oh, that's amazing.
So there will be more that we'll talk about that. But yeah, basically a very active location that's had a long a history of weird stuff and weird vocals and pretty crazy. So yeah,
that's awesome, man. Oh, dang. I'm more excited than I was, and I was pretty excited before.
And then Tate added, I'm most excited for Beyond the Trail, Tate's thermal site. So yeah, we're also hoping this summer to get to some locations in California and the Pacific Northwest again to do some more Beyond the Trail. And Tate filmed a possible Sasquatch on a thermal a few years ago in the mountains outside of LA. So we're hoping to get up to that location and keep on pushing until we get something more definitive, till we have more substantive kind of stuff. That's sort of the goal, and we just try to have fun with it, and we try to take people along for the ride, and yeah, hopefully people enjoy it.
You do a good job of it, man. Your work is really inspiring. Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys are nailing it. Where can people follow you online just to keep up with what you're doing?
Yeah, the easiest place is probably just my website, Petakov Media, Petakov media.com. It's got links to Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. Also, I have a YouTube channel called Sasquatch Out of the Shadows, and do a weekly
and a really awesome live stream. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, we do. No, I appreciate that. We do a live stream every Monday at 8 p.m. and have some awesome folks on. Having this coming Monday, having Robert Leiterman of the Bluff Creek Project on. Just put out a book about the rediscovery of the Patterson-Gimlin film site. So excited for that. And yeah, we just that kind of all over the place. And then Small Town Monsters is where you can see all the Beyond the Trail documentaries. But all that stuff is on my website. So like I said, Petakov Media will lead you to all that stuff I talked about and more. So definitely the easiest place. And I have in my bio on here on Instagram, I have like a link tree. It's got links to everything on there too. So check that out.
Fantastic. Dude, thank you so much. Thank you so much for making time to hang out with me.
You
I
got
really
it,
appreciate
man.
it.
I was looking forward to it. You know, it's always fun to talk to like-minded individuals and people that are into the weird. And you know, I do some of these podcasts sometimes, and it's like super structured, and people ask like the same kind of questions. But I love being able to just go on tangents about whatever. So
that was
appreciate
the goal.
It. Awesome, and awesome what you do with this platform and paranormality and all that stuff. So
thanks, man. Thank you.
Hopefully see you at Crypticon or even sooner if possible. But
oh yeah,
I'm sure we'll hang down the road either way.
For sure, bro. Yeah. There's a clubhouse room in 22 minutes. I don't know if you're jumping into that.
Oh, but... okay. I haven't been on Clubhouse in a while, but I might swing in there while I'm editing. Yeah, that sounds like fun.
Yeah. Well, cool, dude. Thank you so much. Hope to talk to you really soon.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
You take it easy. Be safe.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you so much to everybody who jumped in. It was great to see all of you. Join me on Monday evening. I'll be hanging out with Kenzie Gleason of the Manic Pixie Dream Ghouls. Great friend of ours. Wonderful human being. Can't wait to do that. And then at the end of this month, I believe the 28th, hanging out with Greg Morrill of All the Weird, who is hosting a clubhouse room that I'm going to go to in 22 minutes. So I'll hope to see you guys there. I believe it's Fortean art is the topic, and there are a whole bunch of really cool people that I adore, and they're going to be talking. But yes, I'll hope to see you all Monday when we're hanging out with Kenzie. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for tuning into Strange Conversations. I can't believe people actually take the time to sit down and listen to me talk to people. It blows my mind. You're awesome. I love you all. Good night.